Hello everyone, welcome back to the Boring Channel 8. My name is Tony, and today's video is going to be a little bit conspiracy theory video about our reality. Are we living in a different timeline since 1999, which the video title from Metaphysical suggests? I would say we are living more in the reality split happened more 2010-ish, around that time, maybe 2012, with the end of the Mayan calendar or something like that. That was kind of the end of the timeline that we lived, and suddenly we shifted into this digital timeline, completely augmented, weird reality that many of us remember world that was completely different from the one that we grew up in. Suddenly, the world is giving us signals that, something is off, I think. And that's what brought me, this underlying feeling brought me to this video. And I haven't watched it yet, so I'm really curious what's that's going to be about. So let's take a look together.
When you think of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, what images do you think of? Each had a very distinct style of what the culture was like, with very specific fashion, TV shows, music, design, and everything else. But after 1999, that all stopped. You could look at a TV show from 2005 or 2025, and how the people act and dress and design their spaces pretty much stayed the same. At least, that's the strange, thought-provoking theory people are starting to talk about. And I can tell you, I was there. The 80s and the 90s were so distinctly different from each other, and we could see looking back at how different each decade was from the 50s through to the 90s. We were fully aware. That's why Back to the Future was such a fantastic movie. The nostalgia from the 50s was palpable.
By the way, I already watched The Stranger Things. Back to the Future was also hinted, I think 2 times. At least one time I remember, and I was just so Back to the Future. I just love it. I love those movies. They'll be forever in my heart.
Questions I keep coming back to are, why have the decades since 2000 seemed relatively the same? Are we stuck in a time warp? Has culture ground to a halt on purpose? I decided to collect all the evidence I could find of this bizarre Matrix-style time freeze and see if we can figure out what's actually going on. Is it just a pile of technological and social issues creating this, or is there evidence of other theories? Let's go through all of them. Join me, investigative researcher Rob Counts, for a metaphysical show that's out of this world.
Metaphysical. I recommend this is a really great channel. Go and subscribe. If you don't subscribe to there, also subscribe to the Boring Channel 8, by the way. If you like my reactions and my commentary to various topics. Let's go.
You believe it's the year 1999, when in fact it's closer to 2199. I can't tell you exactly what year it is, because we honestly don't know.
I can't tell you what year it is either. And if you think about it, we're sort of existing in the Matrix time warp concept now. And it gets even weirder if you start looking at people's appearances. Now, I know what you're going to say. How could things be the same in all the years since 2000? Look at all the massive advancements in computers and technology. I mean, sure, I get it. It's not that nothing has changed. We're talking about cultural distinctions between our decades. But the craziest of all for me of this Matrix time warp was one example I saw on social media. If you watch The Office, which I do, and it's consistently ranked as one of the most popular shows of all time, all of what they're wearing and how they're...
By the way, I've never watched The Office, and I just gotta change that. 100% gotta change that. But I just don't have the time for it. I just never watched it. And people are, it got to a point that I cannot say it openly. I'm saying it now, but usually I'm just not really proud of that fact that I didn't watch it.
Her hair is styled and everything looks just like today. You could not guess the year any episode was filmed if you didn't already know, because it literally could be any year beginning with a 2.
They're the same picture.
The Office actually ran from 2005 to 2013. so it should be decades out of date. But teenagers today have a more extreme version of Jim's hair in season 1. They have a fluffy mop or semi-perm of broccoli hair now, or some in Gen Z have a partial comeback of 90s hair. Where did the distinct decade styles go? Fashion seems to be stuck in this limbo land without anything truly new coming onto the scene, and all kinds of duplicates or copies of the past are coming forward. Just think about all these decade styles. They were so distinct. Greasy Elvis and James Dean hair came from men in the 50s, and Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn styles for women. Think of Happy Days outfits. 60s had hippies and bright colors.
By the way, I would love to live through the 60s. I would just so enjoy the hippie era. It would be, it would be just a joy for me to go wild like that, like they did. It's, yeah.
70s got long hair, colorful plaids, patchwork, and polyester. I mean, who wouldn't want to wear avocado, puke green, and burnt orange knitted
same the 70s and the 80s.
ponchos every day alongside a Partridge Family haircut? I mean, I sure do. The 80s brought us Jane Fonda sportswear, shoulder pads, big hair, punk, and fluorescent colors. The 90s was baggy, grunge, flannel, casual jeans, and t-shirts.
I lived through that. Look at me. I mean, yeah. I love Nirvana. Shout out to Nirvana. Shout out to Pearl Jam. I love Pearl Jam. And also the late 90s. And also the 90s hip-hop, all that Dr. Dre, all that Eminem. What else was there? Tupac, obviously. Yeah, it was just different times. It had a personality. It feels like we don't have personality now, really. We just we remake and revive everything from the past because we just cannot really decide what's our own style or our own thing. We just don't have it. We just don't have it somehow. It feels like that, for sure.
Mini skirts, hoodies, and khakis with hair and center parts and curtains. That was wild. And that's where we ended the 20th century, right? But this is also where things got strange. The 2000s never really found itself. It was just a mashup of every style from past decades. Both wide and skinny jeans, sportswear, tight clothes, baggy clothes, hair of every length. I mean, just go into the mall today and you won't find one decade's fashion. You'll see them all. And we've been post-1999 for 25 years. But it's not just fashion, of course. That's just the most...
Damn, if you realize that, it's really crazy. If you think about that, we are not changing, really. In terms of fashion, 100%, we are not changing. We are just mixing things up, and that's it. Or reviving it.
It's obvious because we look at people all the time. Have you noticed?
And if you think about it, we're doing also with movies. We have either these blockbuster, sterile movies, most of them, except really exceptional movies that are really great, like postmodern kind of realism movies and fantasy genre mostly, or sci-fi, like Dune. I'm thinking about Dune. Like, that's an amazing movie. And obviously any kind of Nolan movie, even I would say Oppenheimer 100% is postmodernism, yeah, there is not much really. We just do remakes, and there's not much new. And if there is something new, the audience loves it. If there is something really refreshing, new, but also we don't have that much of our thing.
That Hollywood doesn't seem to be able to produce a unique script anymore.
Maybe because everything is just made for profit, and people are just not making these really bold, I mean, not in terms of fashion. I mean, people are wearing all kinds of, especially famous people who are wearing all kinds of crazy shit. But
at least not for our movies. All our movies seem to be remakes of the past creative stuff that came out of the last century, and specifically the late 70s through the 80s and 90s. Take a look at this list of remakes I curated from a much larger list on IMDb. Total Recall, RoboCop, Point Break, Footloose, The Karate Kid, War of the Worlds, The Day the Earth Stood Still, Hairspray, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Cinderella, King Kong, Clash of the Titans, Carrie, Planet of the Apes, and I hardly brought up any of the horror movies they've remade.
And that all started in the 2000s. That's true. That's really true. It started in 2000, and from there on, it was like outside of Marvel, there was nothing really new.
That list is huge. Have people gotten lazy, or could something else be going on? In ancient Greek culture, they talked about muses. It was the muses who imparted to people their inspiration for creativity. All creativity came from them. When people had a creative block, they used to say that they'd lost touch with their muses, or that the muses had stopped taking care of them. Muses were held in extremely high esteem. What, did the muses stop taking care of people after 1999? Could we somehow be unable to create original stories anymore? And if so, why? Speaking of movies, I was watching The Matrix recently, and something jumped out at me that I hadn't ever thought about before. Why did the AI program controlling The Matrix claim that 1999 was the peak of human civilization?
The Matrix was redesigned to this, the peak of your civilization.
In the movie, 1999 was the point when humans had just enough material benefits to strive for, and just enough misery to keep them occupied that they didn't question their reality. Well, when I looked at our own reality, I realized that he was kind of right. Now, no matter what examples we find, people are just going to try to explain this away, but honestly, there's just no fun in that. If we are stuck in this weird time loop, what could have caused it? Let's go into some theories. Nostradamus predicted that in the 7th month of 1999, a great king of terror would descend on the world.
I trust Nostradamus. I mean, the guy is just like, he knew. He knew, and when somebody knows, you just trust him. You just trust him.
Nostradamus said a lot of things, and I'm not really sure I buy the world ending is what he meant by that. But what is weird is that in late June of 1999, the comet Hale-Bopp was in the sky.
How did he know that? I mean, seriously, how did he know that? I mean, he must have predicted something, and then he predicted something, and something actually happened. I don't believe in coincidences, by the way. There are no coincidences, really.
Some theories suggest that the comet really hit the Earth back then. But if that were the case, why are we all still here? It would have been devastating to the point of destroying all of civilization. It's said...
Maybe he miscalculated, He's just like, shit, guys. Thank God I was just bad in math.
That when you die, your brain lives on for 7 minutes, replaying your memories or living out new ones in a dreamlike state. And in dreams, as we know, time moves differently from when we're awake. Many people who have had near-death experiences have explained what it's like to have their life flash before their eyes. So what if we're living in the interdimensional spaces of our brains after we've already died? 7 minutes could feel like an eternity.
That would be crazy. That would be insane. That would be insane. In theory, you can go on forever like this. If you die within that space of your brains, of collective brains, you die again, and then it happens again and again and again to infinity, actually.
According to The Matrix, the world ended in
Maybe the people who die, they just really split and live on in a different reality. That would be, mind-boggling.
1999, AI took us over and the sky was scorched. Believe it or not, some people really believe that we're living in an artificial projection and that AI really did take us over, which...
That would be more probable, I would say. That would be really more probable than that we are dead and we are living in... But that we are actually living the Matrix, I would believe that. Or that we have moved to that situation maybe in some part of 2000s, and we just haven't noticed because how would you, everything would be wiped out and you would just start in a moment. That would be that would be crazy.
Looking at the fashion industry right now, that could be true. The holographic universe theory states that our three-dimensional universe is a two-dimensional projection on a cosmic scale. Basically, we're living in a massive cosmic hologram, and everything we perceive as being 3D is really just an illusion. What's weird is that there might be some truth to this. Now, every planet gives off...
I think that was actually a real theory, and it's a real scientific theory that is actually being taken seriously. So, yeah, there is something behind that.
Frequency, a vibration, and a sound. We know there are connections between objects in the cosmos, and that it gives our reality stability, like the push and pull between particles. That's not weird. But what if those elements of our
Yeah, for example, which is really weird,
solar system actually operate like transmission towers that keep our reality the way it is, like projection points in a matrix. If we're talking about being stuck in a matrix time warp, we can go even further. Some believe Saturn is giving off these frequencies that are being transmitted to objects like the moon and the Earth, and that creates some type of projection. Well, in mythology, Saturn is the god of time, and another name for Kronos, so maybe time really is different now.
I'm sure that there is, or not sure, I mean, you cannot be sure of anything, but I was many times thinking about if we are really influenced by these. We are definitely, like what we can measure, we are influenced by these big celestial objects like Saturn, right, like Neptune, like Uranus. And I wonder how much more they influence us. I'm sure also the moon has an influence on us as beings, even biological beings, So there must be some sort of truth to that. And I really wonder what we don't know. There's so much we don't know. I've heard in one really great show, it's called Dark. Many of you probably know it. The main character says, was ich weiß, ist ein Tropfen. Was ich nicht weiß, ist ein Ozean. That's the German saying. And that means what I know is a drop. And what I don't know is an ocean. And if you realize that even we as a civilization, not just individuals, but as a whole, as species, even through all this compounding knowledge over centuries, and some knowledge being lost and then came back later, some knowledge might have been also completely lost, and we just going through a different branch of technology and knowledge, through a different perspective and different paradigm, different dogma, So it's interesting. I find it very interesting.
The scientist Stephen Hawking once warned that when we find the God particle, it could one day be responsible for the destruction of the entire universe. And Hawking was not the only scientist who thought so. Their theory was that the Higgs boson is the precise mass needed to keep the universe on the brink of instability. But its delicate state will eventually collapse, leaving the universe unstable. In fact, if this God...
I gotta say, I'm not really familiar with the Higgs boson particle, the God particle. I've heard about it. It was a part of the Dark series. I kind of have an idea about it, of course, thanks to that series, but no real deep knowledge or any deeper knowledge on that, as somebody who's just like reading about it and not studying it.
Particle were real, it could usher in a quantum doomsday. On July 4th, 2012, the God particle, also known as the Higgs boson, was found. What if the discovery of this particle indeed destroyed the universe as we know it, or at the very least changed it. Did you know that the most advanced calendar of the ancient world was the Maya calendar? This calendar only recorded up until December 21st, 2012, the same year the God particle was found. What if?
Yeah, same year, and just like 5 months after it was actually found, and that is very weird coincidence. As I said before, I don't believe in coincidences, so that is weird.
Well, it doesn't seem like the world ended in 2012, or did it? Because something strange is definitely going on. In 2013, Nelson Mandela died, but
this is one of the most fascinating things for me, the Mandela Effect, because so many people have it, and I'm one of those people who thought actually that Nelson Mandela is already dead many years, that he died somewhere in the sometimes in the 90s when I was small. I've heard about it. This is how I learned it. Somebody told me that for sure, and it's just so weird. It's just so weird because I thought so, that's one of those for me actually. And
bizarrely huge number of people remember him dying years earlier in the 90s. I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
On December 5th, 2013.
You see, like, I'm really one of those people. I believed that. Now I know it's not true, so I actually internalized it. But I found the truth when he actually died, and it took me years to accept that actually.
I was designing the front page of a newspaper in New York City where I used to work. As I laid it out, I remembered leaning over to an editor and saying, "Didn't this guy die already?" Now, if it were just one event, you could easily write it off as people not remembering what happened.
Yeah, there's more.
But this was the first of so many glitches in the Matrix. I'll list a few here.
Oh, déjà vu.
In the movie Snow White, the evil stepmother gazes into the mirror. Remember what she says? Mirror, mirror on the wall, right? Nope, now it's magic mirror on the wall. Literally.
I was obviously watching a different version, not the English version as a child, but it was always mirror, mirror on the wall, even for my language. And it's just, I don't see a reason why would they put it in Czech as mirror, mirror, and then it would be actually in English magic mirror, when there's no reason to do that, to make it sound better or anything like that. So it's very strange, and this is also one of those for me. That's weird.
No one remembers Magic Mirror. Then Sinbad was never in a movie that everyone, including me, remembers coming out in the 90s called Shazam. Shaq was even in a knockoff remake called Kazam. Shazam doesn't exist, but Kazam still does. No one can figure it out. Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse and gave people giant checks. There's even footage of Johnny Carson talking about Ed doing this, but it officially never happened, and he never worked there.
I didn't have those because I didn't live the American culture as a child that much. I mean, I watched Cartoon Network. That was it for me, So
can't figure that out either. I remember my entire childhood seeing that guy holding up checks in commercials all the time.
Let me know if you guys had one of those, really American kind of cultural thing.
Between my cartoons. C-3PO now has...
This is weird. This is also, I've never seen him with this, and then suddenly people are telling me that this guy had a silver leg.
As a silver leg in the Star Wars movie. The weird part, my action figure when I was a kid didn't have that, and no one can remember this in the movie. But when you go back and check the old VHS tapes and laser discs, the silver leg is indeed there. These mysterious examples have led people to speculate that something really did happen in 2012, and we're living in a different timeline. Why the universe would choose something so close but with these minor differences in details, I can't answer. But instead of it being evidence the world ended and we're stuck in a time warp, perhaps it's evidence we were saved. And this was as close as we could get to the original timeline. One final theory on why
So some big ass fight took place, we have no idea about it because we are just, I'm sorry guys, this is my I'm doing laundry. I'm sorry for the sound. Oh goddamn. It's the end of the cycle. So something took place, and then reality reverted back to normal, but some glitches happened, and we lived on without knowing anything. Crazy.
We've been living in weirdness for the last 25 years where everything seems to be staying the same. Could be that technology is collapsing time. Now, follow me on this one. The theory is that as technology develops, the speed of advancements also increases until eventually it advances at such an exponential rate that the speed becomes infinite, like an infinite loop. Now, Moore's law is one similar example because starting in the 60s, the number of components in integrated circuits were doubling every year. Moore predicted that if the pattern continued, the rate of growth of these semiconductors would become enormous,
Pattern, by the way,
which it
continues.
did as the semiconductor industry took this as a challenge. With artificial intelligence being created now and man really merging more and more with machine, this exponential improvement rate of tech has already started. In the time since 1999, in real life, we've been stuck in the same kind of minimally changing culture, except for changes driven by technology. We interact less, socialize less, trends come and go much quicker, and time progression is harder to mark because there are fewer tangible things to mark that time with. Let me give you an example. I saw a comment on YouTube from someone who said they were able to mark the time in the 2000s by when they were married and when their children were born. And I agree, families are a huge marker of time progression, as are major events like weddings, births, deaths, and high school graduation. But whereas in the past, people were going out to participate in more weekly activities, physically doing more things, today there's even less movement and activity. Fewer people go to the mall and even to the grocery store. Teenage trips to the movies, mini golf, or loitering around happen less often than everyone interacting on the phone. Now, this is not criticism of our current reality. In fact, I think there may be some benefits to this limbo land, time warp, matrix reality we seem to be stuck in. We've got so much more of a chance to make choices.
I mean, it's a sad reality, to be honest. I mean, it's not a criticism. It is what it is, right? But it's a sad reality for sure for now. Let's see what would get us out of this weird limbo.
That change things. Some people think this is super depressing, that we're not creative anymore, we're relying on AI instead of originality, and things are increasingly gray. But it also seems like the past 2.5 decades have actually been like one larger time period the way one decade was in the past. And as more people become interested in innovation again, things are going to change rapidly. The people breaking out of the matrix and seeing that there's something more to reality happens every day. Just check out the comments on my Dreams Are Real episode. It's going to blow your mind. Now, some people may argue that in the past, the decades weren't really that distinct. I've heard that the 80s was just inspired by the 60s and the 90s.
Nah, that's not true. That's not true. They are very distinctive. Very distinctive.
Were just a redo of the 70s as our parents' styles came back around in their own kids' youth. But I think you really got to see the obvious differences in style here. I mean, I was there. No, the 80s was very unique, and the 90s was too. The 90s grunge look came from Seattle, and I have to say, part of the skateboarding culture. While the 70s style was a reaction to an anti-war movement, the 60s hippie time period had color and go-go boots, sure, but that's totally different from the neon fluorescence and insanely big hair of my 80s childhood. You cannot say those were the same. But why are trains a little faster now, cars a little less varied, and planes haven't really improved at all in decades?
Yeah.
In decades, while targeted ads on our phones are so good, they seem to be able to read our minds. Are we really stuck in a matrix time warp? What are we going to do with this extra time? And what will the world look like in another 10 or 50 years? Leave me a comment with what you guys think, because I always love hearing it. And remember to like and subscribe to the Metaphysical.
Like and subscribe to Metaphysical, like and subscribe to Boring Channel 8. And let me know, guys, in the comments what you think. Do you believe we are living in a weird, different timeline? Or is just the technology that makes us so different, and so, in a way, we are progressing. We have better iPhones, we have better PCs, we have better cars. But that's it, really. That's really it. So let me know, guys, what you think. Like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.